Ecuador's comptroller general has been arrested in an operation against organised crime, the public prosecutor's office reported on Tuesday. Europe is once again the epicenter of the global coronavirus pandemic, according to the World Health Organization. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov have condemned new European Union sanctions against a group of Iranian officials at a time when negotiations are underway with the European powers to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. Ecuador's comptroller general has been arrested in an operation against organised crime, the public prosecutor's office reported on Tuesday. Comptroller Pablo Celi de la Torre, his brother and several other officials were arrested by police units and prosecutors in a series of raids in Quito and Guayaquil in the early hours of Tuesday in the framework of an investigation launched in 2019 for alleged corruption in the state oil company Petroecuador, the comptroller's office and the General Secretariat of the Presidency. Celi de la Torre is a close associate of President Lenin Moreno, who said he would not intervene in the process. Ecuador's Attorney General Diana Salazar said that a number of documents, computers and cash were seized in the raids. The comptroller is accused of obstructing investigations of an irregular allocation of $112 million in favour of a mobile telephone company. While a series of audits are yet to be undertaken before the absolute final outcome of Sunday's general elections in Peru is announced, according to the count so far, the presidential candidate for the Free Peru National Political Party, Pedro Castillo, secured over 18% of the vote. A second-round vote to define the president and vice president is scheduled for June 6, with a total of 18 candidates vying for a place. According to results released so far by the National Office of Electoral Processes, with over 88% of votes counted, Keiko Fujimori of the far-right Popular Force Party is in second place with over 13.2% of the vote. She's followed in third place by Hernandez Soto of the Go On Country Party with 11.9%. 5.1% of ballots were declared null so far, while 12.1% were blank. Meanwhile, of the 20 parties running for the 130 seats in Congress, and with 67% of votes counted, the Free Peru National Political Party and the Popular Force Party have secured the most votes. In Bolivia, the plurinational electoral body has announced the results of the second-round vote held on Sunday to determine the governors of 4 departments of the country. According to the results, the ruling Movement Towards Socialism party failed to secure any of the 4 governorships in the second round. Former president and leader of the movement, Evo Morales, called an extraordinary meeting to evaluate the electoral performance. Regarding the results, in the department of Chuquisaca, Damon Condori of the We Are All Chuquisaca party won with 60% of the vote. Meanwhile, in La Paz department, Santos Quispe of the Hayaya party won with 56% of ballots cast. In Pando department, Regis Richer, representing the Third System movement, won with 55% of the vote. And lastly, in the department of Tarija, Oscar Montes for the United for Tarija party won with 56% of ballots. Venezuela's Simón Bolívar International Task Force delivered humanitarian aid to St. Vincent and the Grenadines this Monday on board a Bolivarian Navy vessel following the eruption of La Sufre volcano on Friday. The mission includes 15 specialists and 2 multi-purpose vehicles to assist in search and rescue operations, as well as emergency healthcare, logistics and communications. Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, expressed gratitude for the solidarity of the peoples and governments of Latin America and the Caribbean for the support they've offered to his nation in these difficult times. The Prime Minister expressed special appreciation to the President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, for immediately organising humanitarian aid following the eruption of the volcano. On Saturday, the Venezuelan government sent close to 20 tons of humanitarian aid and activated the Simón Bolívar Humanitarian Task Force to collaborate with the brotherly people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Situation which is facing our country at the moment.
And Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, welcomed the Bolivarian Navy vessel carrying humanitarian aid and thanked the government and people of Venezuela for their quick response to the natural disaster.
I want to welcome very warmly
Quiero dar la bienvenida
my comrade, my brother, Captain Mendoza of the vessel from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, which has just docked here and which has come with 20 tons of humanitarian relief. I want to thank you very much, Captain. The people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the people of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela have very strong relations. And those relations have been strengthened through the instrumentality of the ALBA, the Bolivarian Alternative for Latin America and the Caribbean. Venezuela is very well known under the leadership of President Chavez and President Maduro for its exceptional solidarity with countries in Caribbean and Latin America, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This is not the first time that Venezuela has been assisting us over the last 20 years, and we are not surprised that they came so very quickly, given the volcanic eruption and the terrible situation which is facing our country at the moment. So is it today in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, by the act of our brothers and sisters from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. I thank them on behalf of our government and people from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Europe is now the epicenter of the global coronavirus pandemic, according to the World Health Organization. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom stated that the Covid-19 pandemic has entered a critical phase and Europe has become the planet's most affected region, with the highest number of reported cases and deaths in the world. More than 1 million Covid-19 related fatalities have been registered in the European continent since the beginning of the pandemic. The most affected country in terms of the number of cases registered to date is France, having reported more than 5.1 million infections, followed by Russia with over 4.6 million and the United Kingdom with more than 4.3 million. However, the United Kingdom has reported the highest Covid-19 death toll in Europe at over 127,000. United States health authorities have called to pause the administration of the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine after 6 women reported blood clots after receiving the shot. The alleged incidents coincide with similar events in Europe involving the AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine. The US Food and Drug Administration issued a joint statement alongside the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, explaining that the events occurred between 1 and 2 weeks after the vaccine was administered. The recipients of the jab that developed the blood clots were women aged between 18 and 48. Nearly 7 million people in the United States have received Johnson & Johnson shots so far, according to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. In France, the availability of self-tests for COVID-19 has sparked varied opinions. The health supplies are supposedly easier to use as they do not require the intervention of a health professional, but they are also less effective in detecting the virus than the most widely used PCR tests.
I don't really know if it is a good idea, because it is expensive, whereas PCR tests are free and reimbursed by the health system. And then, if I have understood correctly, we are not really sure, because if it is negative, we still have to do a PCR test. And if it is positive, we'll still have to look for a variant, so I'm not really convinced. Do you think it's useless? Yes, honestly yes. I don't think it's very useful.
I haven't had the chance yet, but yes, of course, the more you can test, the better. All means are good to try to get out of it. You still have to retest afterwards, whether it's positive or negative. Depending on the variant or not, so I'm not convinced of the effectiveness.
On Tuesday, French Prime Minister Jean Castex announced the suspension of all flights to and from Brazil in a move to curb the spread of a new COVID-19 variant found in the South American country. The Prime Minister explained that due to the worsening situation and after meetings between the government and health authorities, it was decided to stop all air traffic with Brazil until further notice. According to health experts, the Brazilian strain known as P1 is particularly lethal and one of the main causes for the increase in France's coronavirus death toll. In March, the French health minister reported that around 6% of COVID-19 cases in the country were the more contagious strains that were first found in Brazil and South Africa. Austria's health minister announced his resignation this Tuesday, saying he was overworked and exhausted on dealing with the coronavirus crisis.
It has now been a good 15 months that I have taken over this very nice challenging activity. My impression is that it has not been 15 months but feels rather 15 years with all what we have experienced and achieved. I have therefore decided in consultation with my heart to resign from my position as Minister for Social Affairs, Health, Care and Consumer Protection.
India authorised the emergency use of Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine this Tuesday to battle a surge in COVID-19 cases. The country has now registered the second highest number of infections in the world.
In a positive development, a third vaccine has been approved for emergency use in India. This is a collaboration between Russia and India. After a lot of effort and systematically studying the vaccine, the trials were done satisfactorily. We know that the manufacturing of this vaccine will also happen. We'll continue to discuss how this opportunity can be used expeditiously, quickly and comprehensively.
The COVID-19 pandemic has affected all aspects of people's lives all over the world. Our collaborator Stephen Taylor brings us a story from Cape Town, South Africa, on how the pandemic has impacted the tourism industry of the region.
COVID-19 has had a massive impact on the tourism industry. JP Josephat and Boris Nanda from Namibia embarked on a journey to build a boat with us starting back in 2018. Little did they know COVID-19 would impact the building of their boat. Boris takes us through the importance and significance of the name of the boat.
Lady Victoria is actually named after my mother. For me, I decided, no, let me name the boat after her, just for the challenges that she had gone through her life. And also she's a very, health-wise, she's not always that healthy. And for me, I decided, let me dedicate this to my mom, that she managed to raise us all.
Boas adds that building the boat wasn't easy.
We started building the boat in 2018, and by that time no one ever thought that we'll have something called COVID in our lives. So now it was a bit, I was a bit hesitant. Some of the ideas I was saying, should I change it into a fishing vessel? And then I was just like, no, but after this, I'm sure we'll definitely get the vaccine is already here. I'm positive that it will definitely work if we all adhere to taking the COVID vaccine and also just follow the necessary procedures and protocols that are there. And I'm definitely sure that it will pick up, and it has created a couple of jobs here in Hout Bay itself, and it will also create more job opportunities in Namibia. So I'm excited.
In these uncertain times, getting the tourism sector going again is vitally important. The Namibian tourism industry contributes over $47 million to the Namibian economy. Lady Victoria will be part of boosting the tourism sector. For teleSUR News in Cape Town, I'm Stephen Taylor.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. During a joint press conference in the Iranian capital this Tuesday, Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov condemned new European Union sanctions against a group of Iranian officials, which come at the same time that negotiations are underway with European powers and the US to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal.
If the European Union lacks any sort of coordination and its right hand doesn't know what its left is doing, that is a tragedy. But if this decision was consciously made to be taken in the midst of the negotiations to save the joint comprehensive plan of action in Vienna, then it isn't a tragedy, but it's a mistake, which, as you know, is worse than a crime. We condemn any attempts to undermine the difficult process that is underway in Vienna between all the participants of the joint comprehensive plan of action. We hope that our European colleagues understand the unacceptability of such sanctions and will take measures to prevent a breakdown in the talks. Our position is clear, and it's unified with that of our Iranian friends. All unilateral sanctions of that Washington enacted in violation of the JCPOA must be categorically annulled.
Iran will speed up its uranium enriching program to record levels in response to the latest attacks against its nuclear facilities. The uranium enrichment in the country will now reach a record 60%, and 1,000 new centrifuges will be added to the nuclear facilities in Natanz, as announced by Iranian negotiator Abbas Araghchi on Tuesday. The move comes in response to the blackout and explosion that took place over the weekend in Natanz. Tehran blames the Israeli regime for the sabotage. The new level of enrichment is still below the capacity needed to produce nuclear weapons. Iran is now also reacting to new sanctions imposed by the European Union against government officials, precisely when negotiators in Vienna are trying to push the United States to re-enter the nuclear agreement of 2015.
Speaking of Red TV, Iran's top nuclear negotiators said that the country will...
This Tuesday, the Russian defense minister stressed that the United States and its NATO allies have enhanced their military presence in the Arctic and on Russia's western and southern borders as part of the escalation of the military encirclement of the country.
US and NATO allies troops moved from Europe to Russian borders. Principal forces are concentrated on the Black Sea and the Baltic regions. Overall, about 40,000 military forces and 15,000 pieces of military equipment and vehicles are focused next to our territory, in particular strategic aviation. With in-control activities and exercises, we carried out military readiness of troops in western and southern military districts during the winter season of education. For 3 weeks, 2 armies and 3 troops of airborne forces were successfully deployed to western borders of the Russian Federation. To strengthen the defense of the Russian Federation and the defense of national interests in the Arctic, the Ministry of Defense carries out a systematic work of the enhancement of combat capabilities of the Northern Fleet.
US President Joe Biden has decided to leave American troops in Afghanistan beyond the May 1st deadline that was negotiated with the Taliban by the Trump administration, while setting a new date for their withdrawal to coincide with the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. Biden had been hinting for weeks that he would let the deadline pass, claiming that an orderly withdrawal of the remaining 2,500 US troops in Afghanistan would be difficult. The decision risks retaliation by the Taliban, with the possibility of escalating the 20-year war in a context in which various other armed groups are already escalating attacks in the country. Protesters gathered for a second night on Monday outside of Brooklyn Center Police Department following the killing of a 20-year-old black man, Daunte Wright, by police during a traffic stop in the Minneapolis suburb. The latest police killing of a black unarmed man has further fueled the tensions in a US city already on edge because of the George Floyd murder trial. Police used tear gas and stun grenades to disperse protesters who gathered in front of the police station in Brooklyn Center, the suburb where Sunday's killing occurred.
I knew Daunte Wright personally. He was like a little brother to me. I see him all the time in Brooklyn Center. He hung out with my brothers and he took care of his baby. He was there. He was an active father, and that's good. We need more active black fathers in the community. I think we need to stick together more. Like I said, it's not enough people out here, but I'm out here because I have a black dad, black brothers. I have a black son. So, you know, it's important to me. It matters to me. Black lives matter, and I'm black. I knew Daunte Wright personally. He was like...
The police officer who fatally shot Daunte Wright during a traffic stop in a Minneapolis suburb and the city's police chief have resigned, Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott announced in a press conference this Tuesday. Kim Porter, a 48-year-old officer and a 26-year veteran of the department, submitted her letter of resignation on Tuesday morning. The mayor noted she had not been asked to resign. Police Chief Tim Gannon also resigned on Tuesday. Meanwhile, City Manager Kurt Bogany was fired after he disagreed with the mayor that the officer responsible for Wright's death should be fired.
In this country, if you're black and you get pulled over by the police, you have
In the United States, prosecutors rested their case on Tuesday at the murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin after 11 days of testimony. As part of the case, a huge amount of video depicting George Floyd's final moments was played to the jury, including bystander footage and police body camera video showing how Chauvin held his knee to Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes. Medical experts testified that Floyd died of a lack of oxygen because his breathing was constricted as he was held down on his stomach with his hands cuffed behind his back and his face jammed against the ground. The defense has begun presenting its case, arguing that Floyd died because of his illegal drug use and a heart condition and not because Chauvin pinned him to the pavement. The defense is expected to finish presenting its case this week. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga announced on Tuesday that his government has decided to discharge contaminated radioactive wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the ocean, sparking the condemnation of a large part of the Japanese and the international communities.
The Japanese government wants to discharge nuclear wastewater into the ocean and hopes to treat nuclear wastewater and other follow-up issues of nuclear accidents in a low-cost way. It is all about money in the final analysis, because the government and TEPCO did not want to spend more money. They claimed that there was no place to store nuclear wastewater and listed many reasons for discharging nuclear wastewater into the ocean. But we people do not want the radioactive materials in the ocean, and we do not want to suffer from pollution, so we have to voice our opposition.
Meanwhile, China expressed grave concern on Tuesday over Japan's decision to dump treated radioactive water from the destroyed Fukushima nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean.
As a close neighbor and stakeholder, the Chinese side expresses grave concern over this. The Fukushima nuclear accident is one of the most serious in world history. The leak of large amounts of radioactive materials has had far-reaching implications on the marine environment, food safety and human health. Despite doubts and opposition from home and abroad, Japan has unilaterally decided to release the Fukushima nuclear wastewater into the sea before exhausting all safe ways of disposal and without fully consulting with neighboring countries and the international community. This is highly irresponsible and will severely affect human health and the immediate interests of people in neighboring countries.
Election campaigns are underway in Cape Verde in the run-up to the parliamentary polls on April 18th. Activists from the two main parties, the Movement for Democracy, led by Prime Minister Ulysses Correa Silva, who is seeking re-election, and the African Party for the Independence of Cape Verde, led by Janira Hofta Alamada, have been accompanying their candidates on their rallies in spite of restrictions related to the coronavirus pandemic. So far, the Central Atlantic Ocean island has reported over 19,000 COVID-19 cases and 184 fatalities. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.